Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mang, and we're doing some more solo RPGs. I've really been on a kick for a while now, but we're gonna keep doing it. Hard to say chronologically, what I'm uploading when exactly, if I'm uploading this all in order or not. Probably not, really. But the last thing that I looked at in actual chronological order was Adventure Conquer a King system. And we kind of started up a game of that. We were still doing kind of a let's read thing, but I started up the Sinister Stone of Sakkara, sort of the recommended introductory module for Axe. And, yeah, it was a doozy. We spent like 2.5 hours after making our characters, in which we went through the initial fort just a little bit, did a little bit of shopping, and then had to spend a week in game trying to find one henchman to hire. And during that week, we camped outside of the town. Just because, really, I just wanted to see how it would go. And, I mean, it was kind of interesting. We did a little hunting, poaching, did a little fishing. We then had an encounter with some wild hunting dogs that we scared off and got some solo XP, so on and so forth. So that was kind of fun. Just took like 2.5 hours to do that, which is pretty glacial. Then the next 2 hours after that, we traveled across like 8 miles of flat grassland, debated the philosophical musings of encountering a herd of wild goats hundreds of feet away, and eventually made it into the forest, where not much happened. We spent the night, not much happened, and then we found the big dungeon we were looking for, and we snuck up on it after a long time trying to decide how stealth works. And then we encountered some kobolds at the front entrance, and we killed a couple of them in a very slow brawl, and 2 of them fled. And at that point, I was done, because that was like 2 hours or so. So yeah, it was just a lot of interesting ideas, very interesting ideas, but I kept comparing it to Shadowdark, which I think is a very fun and good system. I think Shadowdark is a simple, appealing system that works for people that have never played an RPG in their life. I think it works for people that have only played like 5th edition D&D and want something they want something where it's possible for their characters to die, perhaps, or their DM does at least. And I think it also works for people that are accustomed to like old school gaming in the OSR and things like that. I saw a comment saying that like one of the guys involved in like the original creation of D&D, not sure exactly, I don't remember exactly, but one of the OGs, I guess, he apparently runs like a regular Shadowdark game for his friends that were also from back in the day, because it just kind of like, it just works, like there's not, it's just modernized, simple, but flexible. And if mostly all you want to do is just dungeon crawling, it has kind of everything you need. Now, what Shadowdark isn't is really, I would say, expansive out of the box. You know, the rule book is 300 pages, and that's a player book and DM book all in one. And it includes, I think, like a starting adventure. I think, is there an adventure in this book? Maybe there isn't. But it's a player's handbook and DM guide all rolled into one. No, it doesn't have an adventure in there. The quick start does, but yeah, this has all the stuff players need to know for like 100 pages, and then all the stuff a GM needs to know, and then like there's 45 pages or 40 pages or so of random encounter tables for every kind of environment. And then there's monsters, but that's really only like 7 pages. No, I'm sorry, I'm an idiot. 7 pages talking about monsters and how to design new ones, and then the actual bestiary is like 70 pages. And then the rest is just like magic items and treasure and stuff. So it's pretty compact, chock full of information, and this is, you know, 300 pages or so in a pretty small book. You know, this is like the A4 size or whatever it is. So what it isn't is incredibly expansive out of the box for everything that might come up in a game like Axe. You know, there aren't any rules in the core book for hirelings and henchmen and things like that. I don't think there's a lot of rules. There's really no rules whatsoever for domain play. So there's no rules for construction. There's no rules for mass battles. There's no rules for magic research, I don't think. Yeah, so anything that's really not in a dungeon or perhaps in a town is just not really in the book. But I do think the game is incredibly flexible and very trivial to add on or create systems for all that sort of stuff. And very easy if you just want to take Axe and take everything Axe has to say about domain play and magic research and hirelings and all that. If you just want to slap that on, go ahead. But plenty of people have also written supplements for Shadowdark, third-party stuff, to add on various concepts. So we will be using Letters from the Dark, Volume 4, Borderlands. We'll be looking at their hireling rules and stuff. I don't know if there's like a big supplement here for domain play of like what it would take to build a stronghold and things like that, but you could take any rule set imaginable that's been created across the last 50 years and use it in Shadowdark very easily. Very flexible, lightweight system. So what I wanted to do then was, after I finished that Axe thing, I was just like, you know, how much easier this would be if I just ran the exact same adventure, but in Shadowdark instead. And we did like the exact same stuff that I did the first time, but just do it in Shadowdark and try and run it with Shadowdark, using Shadowdark rules as much as possible, and my almost like a different DMing style, really. Because when I run Shadowdark, I am going to be pretty flexible and pretty free form with rulings a lot of the time, because that's kind of the point. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to make some Shadowdark characters, and we're going to run through Sinister Stone of Sakkara, making all the same decisions and stuff that I did my first time in Axe. But I imagine that we're going to be quite a bit quicker, and probably going to actually get through the dungeon a little bit more. So let's get started with that. Let's get right into it. Again, I mean, if you really want a deeper dive into Shadowdark from me, I have made other videos about it, going through various modules and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm not new entirely to Shadowdark, but I don't have a great amount of experience in it, and I've never played in someone else's Shadowdark game. So, there's that. But let's start with character creation, because that's always a fun concept. And just, let's get rid of some of these. And we're going to be doing a lot of this in Foundry, just because it's easy to have everything kind of consolidated in Foundry, if possible. And there is a good Shadowdark, module, and some accompanying modules for Shadowdark, and I think it's all pretty slick. So now, what I wouldn't really almost ever recommend if you're gonna play Shadowdark on Foundry, I wouldn't recommend ever using a grid for combat. You can. I mean, you certainly can. I think even the book, or I think even Kelsey, the designer, has said, go ahead if you want. But it's really, if you can help it, I'd recommend against it. I'd really recommend Theater of the Mind as much as possible. If you really have to, for like a big melee, a big combat, or something like that, just turn off the grid and run it more like zone-based, I guess. The thing is with grid-based combat is that it turns it into a board game. And it turns it into one mechanically, and it just turns it into one, like, mentally. I have observed this numerous times, and this is coming from someone, obviously, that started with D&D 4th edition, which was very much a board game. And we practically never conceived of doing a battle that wasn't on a grid. 4th edition was designed from the ground up with a grid. And I don't mind some RPGs nowadays with a grid. And if I'm DMing for a group, and they don't care one way or the other, I don't mind doing a grid for a more tactical system. Because a lot of these kind of games with a lot of spells and abilities and stuff, positioning is quite a bit more important, and knowing how many targets are going to get hit with your, your once per round ability or your spell or whatever, But for a game like this, it's a lot more free form. I think it just stifles creativity, and people just start looking at their character sheets, and just combat often devolves down to I walk forward, I swing. Okay, and then the DM's like, okay, he swings back. Okay, now you swing. And that can happen with Theater of the Mind as well. But I think when everyone's trying to picture it in their minds, they start thinking of, like, just the environment a bit more, and they try and paint the picture, and they might do things that are more creative rather than just looking at their character sheet. So Foundry, I think it's even easier to just evolve into, like, a video game or a board game and just moving pieces across the grid. And that's potentially the downfall of Foundry. But, honestly, like, if I was going to DM on Foundry Shadowdark, I'd probably use Foundry to show the dungeon map, and maybe if it's all set up with walls and everything, I'd move their token around to, like, illuminate the map as they go and stuff. But then if they get into a combat encounter, I'd probably, like, switch the scene or something, or I would just, like, turn off the map entirely. It's just like, it doesn't matter. We're in Theater of the Mind now. Use your brain. That's probably how I would do it. But anyways, okay, so let's make a new character. Character generator. Look at this fancy shit. So we're going to be going level 1, because that's what we were in Axe. And we can roll our stats. So Shadowdark by default is, I believe, 3d6 in order. That is the default for Shadowdark. Now, is it good? Is 3d6 down the line the way to go? Much has been said over the last 50 years. Of whether or not it is the best way to generate characters and to generate your stats. And people have done the math on everything and the odds of getting an 18 doing 3d6 down the line. I think the odds of getting like 118 is like 2.7% or something. The proponents of 3d6 down the line argue that it encourages you to work with what you get. And you're not necessarily, because this is the first thing you do, is roll up your stats. And so you might roll up and like, oh, I have my best stat is my intellect, so maybe I'll go for a mage. Or, like, I really want to play a fighter, but it seems like his strength is kind of middle of the road, and his intellect is somewhat high, so I guess he's kind of a smarter, more careful fighter or something like that. And the idea is that your stats don't really make that much of a difference. It's more about how you play and how you choose to interact with the world, rather than, having a +1 or a +2 on some dice rolls. I agree, in theory. I certainly do. That being said, I also really like how Axe did it. With 5d6 drop 2, 4d6 drop 1 on 2 of the other stats, and then 3d6 for the others. Because not everyone thinks that way. And forcing them to play a character that they're not happy with is mean, I guess, in a way. If you sit someone down and you're like, hey, let's play Shadowdark. We're going to play this fun fantasy game where you're all adventurers going into dangerous locations. Roll up your stats. And they roll like below average in everything. Now, Shadowdark does allow you, if none of your stats are 14 or higher, you can roll a new set of 6 numbers. But say, they get like 8, 10, 9, 10, 8, 14, and their charisma is 14, and everything else is garbage. And it's just like, well, that is legal stats, so, just work with it. Work with what you got. They're not necessarily going to be pleased about it, and going in with a sour attitude is just kind of pointless, because to me as the DM, say on the flip side, a person rolls up and they get very lucky, and now they have 14, 16, 15, 12, 17, something like that. It's like, damn, I'm kind of good at everything. Now, yes, I understand the OSR perspective, that in no way guarantees anything. But that's my point exactly. It doesn't guarantee anything. And yeah, it's very, very, very possible for you to go down and have this could be my stats right here. I could have 10 and everything. And that is perfectly legal, perfectly viable. Many in the OSR community would say, yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. And what this person is an utterly average peasant. This is the stat of every peasant in a game world, usually. Is just 10 down the line. And it's like, it just doesn't really inspire heroism, I suppose, when you know that you're an utterly average peasant in every single way. Now, yeah, I mean, you're going to get some stuff from your class, a little bit, that separates you from the rest. True, and it's just one way or the other. I mean, one way or the other, it doesn't matter that much. But what mostly matters is how players feel about it. And so it's just not that big of a deal for as a DM for me to like make people feel bad. The thing is, you kind of have to be consistent. You can't just sit there and say, okay, well, if you are okay with it, you can roll 3d6 down the line. And you, since you're not okay with it, how about you do 46 and drop low? It's like, no, you have to be consistent. And again, that's just going to depend on the group. So honestly, it's just a conversation to have with your group and be frank about it and see how everyone feels. Again, like, I still like the way Axe does it, to be honest. I think it's really nice just because you can kind of guarantee that you can pick one attribute that you want your character to be good at, and they're pretty likely to be good at it. So I'm stealing my first thing from Axe over to Shadowdark, and I'm going to go with those generation rules. And believe you me, stealing and house ruling is the name of the fucking game when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons, and it has been since the first days of it. So do not feel bad about altering your favorite game if it makes people happy. So we have to decide then, since it actually matters now what we pick here, we kind of have to decide what classes we want to go with. Now the core four are the core four again. There's fighter, priest, thief, and wizard. And I think what we want to do is try to make like the same characters that we had. Probably just, yeah, we're trying to copy everything over as much as possible. So there have been additional classes. There's been a few like official additional classes. A handful in the various cursed scrolls put out by Arcane Library. So that's like the Knight of Saint Idris, I think, is one of them, and the Seer, I think, is one of them. The Raz Godai or something like that is one of them. But then there's been many sort of homebrew, house rule, third party additional classes, and one of the most extensive ones that I saw a collection of them is the Player Companion here, which adds a shit ton of new ancestries and a shit ton of new classes. So you see here Gladiator, Mystic, Valkyrie, Spy, Shaman, Scholar, Pugilist, Brigand, many of them. And quality-wise, it's hard to say, because Shadowdark classes are very simple, like exceedingly simple. In some ways, simpler than like BX D&D, and then in other ways, maybe slightly more complicated. Kind of depends on the thief in BX is a lot of text because you have to go over all their different skills, whereas Shadowdark's just like, yeah, you're just kind of good at thievery, and you get advantage on anything that would be thievery related, including climbing and disguises and hiding and blah, blah, blah. So it summarizes a lot. Whereas the fighter in BX is obviously incredibly simple and doesn't get anything really special other than just being better at fighting. Whereas in Shadowdark, you get the Hauler ability, so you get to add your con mod to your gear slots, you get weapon mastery with a type of weapon, and you get grit, which allows you to choose strength or dex, and then have advantage on checks of that type to overcome an opposing force. And then you get talents for every class. So there's talent rolls. So, yeah, I mean, classes are fairly simple. Like, if we look at, say, a ranger here in the Player Companion, you get all weapons, you can use leather armor and chainmail, you get D8 hit points per level. Starting at 3rd level, you begin to gain known spells in the priest school. So starting at 3rd level, but You can also roll a talent. It's unlikely, but you can roll a talent to get one like right away at level 1. And then you get snares. Carry a small pouch of string on your belt. Spend 3 rounds setting up a tripwire trap. Deals 1d4 damage to creatures that come within close distance. Can be performed at no time cost during a rest period. And you get tracking. Automatically succeed on tracking checks of easy or normal difficulty. And you have advantage on hard and extreme checks. And that's the Ranger. And again, much like all the core classes and stuff, these are not like extensive kits. It's not a game like Pathfinder or 5th edition D&D or Shadow of the Weird Wizard, where you're going to be making like a lot of interesting decisions every level all the way through the game and stuff like that. This is more old school, where a lot of what, you know, adds to your character's power and potential is like magic items and stuff that you find throughout the campaign. Not so much just what class you are. I mean, what class you are is obviously pretty impactful from start to finish, but there's not that much separating one fighter from another fighter. There's not really that much separating one thief from another thief. And even for spellcasters, yeah, there's spellcasting choices and stuff, but still not that much difference. So we want like a, well, we had a paladin in Axe, right? There isn't a paladin listed here, and that's because the priest class kind of is the paladin. They get weapon proficiency with clubs, crossbows, maces, longswords, warhammers, and they can wear all armor and shields. They only have a D6 hit point instead of D8, but that's not super surprising. They get turn undead and obviously spellcasting. They know 2 level 1 pre-spells. And then depending on their talents that they roll, they might be better at melee or they might be better at spellcasting. Hard to say. There's no prerequisites for picking a class. There's no like stat requirement or anything like that, so you can do whatever you want. So the priest is pretty much a paladin. I don't know which one of these I'd pick that would be closer to it. Yeah, none really. I mean, maybe a Valkyrie or something. Divine spellcasters blessed by the gods of war. Traditionally female. They can use all weapons, all armor. They get a D8 hit die. It's already looking pretty good. If they use a luck token to deliver a killing blow to an enemy, they get it back immediately. Yeah, luck tokens are a big sort of modernization aspect of Shadowdark that I could see plenty of groups leaving out if they really want a more old school experience. But luck tokens let you re-roll. Sure, I'll find, yeah, here. So it's, you know, the meta currency, as they call it. Awarded for exceptional role-playing, heroism, or just plain coolness, blah, blah, blah. You can have 1 luck token at a time, and you can cash it in to re-roll any roll you just made. You can also give your luck token to a companion. So depending on the sort of level of grittiness and brutality and things like that that you're looking for in your game, as the DM, you might start everyone with luck tokens, and you might even start everyone with 1d4 luck tokens according to the pulp optional mode of gameplay, and people can use luck tokens to turn a hit into a crit or take an extra action or force the DM to reroll. So if you want to run like a really kind of much more casual game of Shadowdark, because you're not as interested in the brutality and lethality. There is pulp mode as an option, which is fairly casual. You know, if all your players start with 4 luck tokens and can just turn a hits into crits or extra actions or force you to re-roll, yeah, pretty big. But then on the flip side, you can just eliminate luck tokens entirely and not even worry about it. Anyways, I feel like I just take forever to do anything when I do this solo stuff. You attract a number of Raven familiars equal to your level. They can communicate with you telepathically and carry small written messages in their claws. They make useful scouts and messengers, but have only 1 HP, plus 1 mod to attacks, 1d4 damage, and 10 AC. If a Raven dies, Valkyrie takes 1 damage themselves. Yeah, you don't really want to get them into combat. And then you get priest spells starting at 3rd level. Although, again, you can learn them earlier. I'd say overall the Valkyrie is kind of similar to a paladin. So what do they lose compared to a priest? So they can use more weapon types. They have a bigger hit die. They get spellcasting, but I guess starting at level 3, and it's only 1. So the priest is going to know by level 3, 3 level 1 spells and 1 level 2 spell. So that's the biggest factors. They're much slower progression on priest spells. And they also can't turn undead. Yeah, I would say they're a bit more just melee. They're a bit more fighter. It's a fighter that eventually gets some priest spells. It's basically a paladin. Because paladins, I don't think, get turn undead either, but they do usually get lay on hands, and it doesn't seem like we have lay on hands. So, even more closer to a fighter. But we'll go with the Valkyrie. We'll have a male Valkyrie, although we're going to have to do this all manually, because that's not going to be listed here. The other one that's actually more akin to a paladin in the core selection is the Knight of St. Idris. But it's kind of a different take on a paladin, because they actually use arcane magic. Hold on, let me see if I can bring that Knight of St. Idris. Actually, we should have... Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, no. Let me just see real quick. So that's going to be in first scroll. Actually, that should be. Yeah, okay, never mind. Scroll. Okay, so this is Curse Scroll number 1, Diablerie. And has various things. The Knight of St. Idris. They can use all melee weapons and a crossbow. They can use all armor and shields. They get 1d6. But they get demonic possession 3 times per day. Gain a +1 bonus to your damage rolls that last 3 rounds. And in addition, add half your level to the damage bonus round down. Okay. And then they can cast witch spells using charisma modifier as their spell casting. And that's also at level 3. So I think it's very much intended to be an alternate take on the paladin. It's sort of like fight evil with evil a little bit. You know, you allow yourself to be possessed by demons. I think for someone looking to play a traditional paladin, this is not what you want. It's not the same vibe. I think it's cool, but it's not the same vibe. And also, I think someone playing that wants to play a paladin is not going to be entirely satisfied with the priest class, as it's a little bit too much spell casting there and not enough butchering. So honestly, this Valkyrie option I think is the way to go. So It's got that little bit of a Viking flavor to it with the ravens and stuff. But I'm sure I could find, honestly, if I search Shadowdark Paladin, there's gonna be plenty of options here. Yeah, multiple homebrew options. Some of them just on the subreddit. Some are actual PDFs on Drive-Thru RPG. Obviously, it's a very popular class in fantasy world. I don't know which of these, if any, is good. So here's one that's just on the subreddit. They can use all swords, maces, and warhammers. They can use all armor, 1d8 hit die. Indomitable. Attempts to charm or persuade you are made at disadvantage. Conviction. When you're holding no shield, gain +1 AC. Smite once per day. When you make a melee attack against a creature, your weapon becomes magical and deals an additional 1d6 damage. Yeah. The problem is once per day is really kind of limited. That should be like your level per day divided by 2 or something like that, or honestly just for like one extra 1d6, just fucking make it once per day per level. It's not bad. I mean, I like some of the ideas here. I'd probably tweak it a little bit myself. Because they don't actually get spells. They don't get spells ever. But their talent, if they roll a 2 on 2d6, which is quite unlikely. They learn 1 tier 1 priest spell using your wisdom stat to cast. And it says reroll on 2 if duplicate. So you only can ever get 1 tier 1, and it's very unlikely that you'll ever get it. Yeah, I don't know. Here's one from a blog called The Champion. D6 hit die, all weapon, all armor. Smite 3 times per day to gain advantage on damage rolls against enemy. And add your level to the damage bonus round down. And you get a patron boon from level 3rd level and beyond. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of... That's the thing. Like, this system is so freaking flexible and easy to slap together. There's going to be a class for everything you can possibly imagine eventually. But yeah, we'll go with the Valkyrie. So we'll just do this manually if I can. If they'll allow me to. It doesn't look like I can manually type in something here. But our paladin's name was Pelorin. We're gonna roll stats here, so this is gonna be 5d6 for our strength. I think we probably want high strength. So 5d6, drop low. Drop low is 2. So we got a pretty shitty roll. We got 10. Yeah, 10. Now, again, in Axe, if we're following this rule, if you have less than a 13, you get bumped up to 13 with that roll. And that's because 13 in that game is the first point where you get a +1. In Shadowdark, that would be 12. So it's a little bit more lenient. And actually, 18 is a +4 in this game. So the whole thing is a little bit more lenient, but that's kind of in line with what Shadowdark is. So we're going to bump our strength up to 13. Then we want con to be a 4d6, drop low. Okay, so that's 14. Charisma, 4d6, drop low. Not so hot. Not so hot at all. A 9 charisma. And if it was less than 9, it would get bumped up to 9. But yeah, still, we're not a very... This is not the same Poloran, that's for sure. And then the other 3 are 3d6. So, int, 11. Dex, 5! Oh, man, 5! We are not sneaking or shooting a bow or anything. But hey, that's 3d6. That's how it works, man. And wisdom 12. Yikes. Okay, so our hit point then, yeah. It's probably not going to let me do this without just picking a class, unfortunately. And then there's also background and ancestry. Ancestry, we're going to be human for everybody, because that's what we were in Acts. Background is a d20 roll on this table. Jeweler. We were a jeweler or a jeweler's apprentice at some point. And our deity will be all Nord gods. Sure. Okay, so it didn't give us a class, but that's fine. That's what we wanted. So, we're gonna roll d8 for our hit die. Now, in Axe, I did say that I like going with the max, and it was an option. It's probably an optional rule in the DM section here. For, like, modes of play or something. But maybe not. No. Okay. So, as far as Shadowdark is concerned, you're always just rolling your hit die. And then your con mod. But Shadowdark is also a little bit more lenient when it comes to dying. You are not necessarily dead at 0. And it's even more lenient than Axe. Axe had that kind of brutal, like, mortal wound table you roll on if you get picked up quickly. Or not so quickly. But in Shadowdark, once you hit 0, you roll a d4 plus your con modifier on your turn. And you die in that many rounds unless healed or stabilized. And then on each of your turns, you roll a d20, and on a 20, you rise with 1 hit point. And someone can stabilize you if they're next to you on a DC 15 intelligence check, and then you stop dying, but you're still unconscious. So it's fairly nice. I saw someone house rule it where the DM rolls the 1d4 and plus con mod in secret. So you don't, no one knows how many rounds the person has to live. I think that's a lot better. So I would play it that way if I was running it. So it is a little nicer. So we'll just go with the straight D8. Determine our hit die, our hit points. 4. Okay. It's not great. No one's gonna love that number when we could have had 10. That is a big difference. We're definitely gonna want to go as heavy armor as we can and shield. Class. Valkyrie. Okay, I feel like the way that this is set up, you just can't play with non-official classes. I'd have to go in and, like, add it somehow. I guess maybe you could. It's probably in the, just going to the compendium here and, like, adding a class. Alright, making a new item. Class. Valkyrie. Okay. And then you just put this in. Spell class. Technically priest. Did we say charisma was there? You don't even say? Okay, then it's just wisdom, right? If it doesn't say. I think we're defaulting to wisdom for priests. Class talent table. So we also would have to put that together. Alignment, whatever. Base DC. I assume it's also just 10. If we're just following priests down the line, I would imagine it's just 10. We don't have to get too fancy here. It's interesting it didn't say for priests. But yeah, the default is 10 plus the spell tier. So unless it's a weird class that changes that, blah blah blah. So the Valkyrie can use all weapons and any armor, so we can just do that. I think that's pretty much all we really need to... I mean, you could put in all this information, I suppose. At third level, we get 1, and then 2, and then 2, and then 1. It's just a delayed... yeah, it's not quite priest. That wasn't correct. Wasn't correct at all. 7, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, okay. This is the only one that we're going to be doing custom. The other one's going to be a thief and a wizard, so we don't have to do this for anybody else. But, you know, you might end up doing this. Okay. That's all fine. So class for Paloran. We have to put this in the class. May not modify Shadowdark, which is currently locked. Great. Unless I can just drop this on here. All right, perfect. Excellent. Alignment of lawful, blah, 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 blah. 4 hit points, which is funnily enough what it also rolled for me anyways, so it was meant to be. We got all that, we're all good. Okay. Then our Valkyrie's pretty much done. I mean, there's not really any... Well, there's the talents, so... And since we're all going to be humans, we get 2 rolls on the talent table. So the first 2d6 here is a 5. So we add +2 to our strength or dex. Ha! Well, I do love strength, and I think strength is really swell. Pretty great. But dex is also fairly important unless I'm wearing plate, because dex also determines my AC a little bit. So bumping up dex to 7 is kind of the way to go. For now. Okay, and then the second roll, also a 5. Okay, well then fuck it, we're bumping this up to a 9, baby. Perfect. Well, not perfect, but that was a lot to correct. Honestly, if I could have just picked talents, that's probably what I would have picked anyways, so I think it worked out. The only thing we really have to keep in mind is we have a raven that we can communicate with telepathically, can carry small written messages. Probably not going to come up, really. And we have favored, if we use a luck token to deliver a killing blow. And we're going to be using the solo dark rules for this, which I didn't use before for some reason, or I must not have thought about or even looked at or something like that. Which is now nowhere to be found. Here it is. So Solo Dark rules, essentially, we re-roll initiative at the start of every combat round. Light sources last 10 rounds each instead of 1 hour of real time. And whenever we roll a 20, we get a luck token. And we can have up to the number of PCs in our group of luck tokens. That's basically it. And then Solo Dark also includes like the simple oracle and a D100 prompt list for verbs and nouns, which is kind of nice. All right, so then we need equipment and our starting gear. First level characters start with 2d6 times 5 gold pieces to buy gear. Again, I feel like templates from Axe are a really nice concept, and literally I feel like you could just roll on those templates for like equipment at the start for a lot of these. Honestly, yeah, if I was interested, and I kind of am, you could just come up with templates for all the classes, and it would determine your starting equipment and your starting talents and starting spells for the spellcasters, and you could just roll that all up, and then all someone has to do when they pick their class is just roll on the template. There's not nearly as many talent choices or talent options as there are proficiencies in Axe, but still, it's not bad. All right, 2d6 times 5 gold pieces. So we are rolling a 9. All right, pretty above average. 9 times 5 is 45. Unfortunately, that's not enough to get us fucking chainmail, which is what we really wanted. So, leather armor it is. And a shield. So that's 20 already. We're down to 25. Then for our weapon, probably looking pretty simple here. A longsword is 9. Mace is 5. Longsword is pretty much the cheapest D8 weapon. If we went with the mace, we'd drop down to D6. The mace and the short sword are identical in every way, except the short sword costs 2 gold more. And that's because it's just more expensive to make a short sword than a mace. There's more metal involved. So it's just, that's it. Now, there is a reason to have a bladed weapon versus a blunted weapon. And ideally you have both. But I guess we're just going to go with the mace. We'll be a little cheap bastard here. So we should have all of this ready. So weapon, mace, bada bing, bada boom. Armor, leather armor. And we will equip both of those. We have 13 gear slots, because it's 12 plus your strength mod. No. I don't know what game I'm thinking of. Here, it's a number of items equal to your strength stat, or 10, whichever is higher. So our strength stat is 13. Yeah. And that's pretty, it's a pretty simple gear slot. Also the shield, yes. Round shield is from one of the supplements, and this lets you do sundering, where you can destroy the shield to negate the damage from an attack. But it costs 5 gold more, so we'll stick with just the regular shield. And then I think we want a crawling kit. I don't know if you're meant to add the crawling kit to your inventory or each individual item. I guess it doesn't make that much difference. But assuming you use a torch, like, you're gonna have to... It's probably better to add all these items individually. Here, we'll just add it individually. I don't know. Do I really care that much? I guess I do. I'm that anal. This anal. Torch. Torch. Iron spikes. Ration. Grappling hook. 60 feet of rope. Okay. Done. So we're at 10 out of 13 items in our slots. Pretty simple. And we have everything we need to do a little adventuring. We have a 12 AC, which is quite shitty. But it's pretty tough to get higher than that at level 1. You know, the best case, honestly, is like a thief. Someone with like a +2 or 3 dex could reasonably have a 14 AC. If they slap on a shield, 15, 16 AC maybe. But yeah, it's like a fighter type, sword and board, that doesn't prioritize dex that much. You're not really buying a chainmail, because that's 60 gold. So even if you got max roll, 12 on your 2d6, you're looking at, yeah, you'd get 60 gold. So unless all you want is your chainmail and nothing else, maybe someone else will loan you a mace or something. I mean, honestly, it's not a bad idea to pool money like that. But yeah. All right. I think that's it. How much should we spend? 20, 25. Brawling kit was 7, so 32 of our 45. We should buy something else. We should probably buy a bow. No, our dex is fucking terrible. So we probably want something throwing. A javelin or something. You can throw a javelin out to far. That's pretty great. Only does D4 damage. There might be like a hatchet or something you could throw. Hand axe, D6. It's in one of the supplements. It's not telling me the range on the throwing. It's in Cursed Skull 3. I could look it up, but we'll just be a little vanilla here, and we'll go with javelins. So one javelin costs 5 silver. So I guess we'll just buy 2 of them, since each one is a slot as well. We're pretty full up. We can't carry a lot of treasure out of there, that's for damn sure. I don't remember the encumbrance rules. Like, if you go over your list, if you go over your number, probably not super important at the moment. So we should move on, because we have gotten nothing done over the course of like an hour. So let's move on to our second character, shall we? Maybe the problem isn't Axe. Maybe the problem is just me and taking forever to do anything. And I just get so easily distracted, like a fucking golden retriever. Like, oh, look at this chart. Look at this table. Let's look at this. Now if I equip Javelin... Yep, there it is. Yeah. Okay. It's not great, but it's fine. We are good then. Paloran is done. We just need a symbol for him, so we'll use the same one as before, from Pathfinder. No. Yes? No. Axe? Now I'm not so sure. Classes? No. Where the fuck did I find that? Icons? Classes? Yes. And we used Cleric. No, we didn't use Cleric. Fine, use a fucking Cleric. Whatever. Done. Okay, second character. Great. So next is Carvis, our thief. So now here we didn't get the character creator thing. What the fuck? How do I bring that up? How did I do that? Oh, create? Oh, okay, there it is. Never mind. You can also import a character from, like, the online Shadowdark one. But, yeah, Thief, Harvest, and we will roll his stats. No, we gotta do it manually, because that's gonna be 3d6 down the line. We could look at it. Bam, there would be his stats rolled randomly. This is exactly what I'm talking about. All right, it's like, I want to sit down. Yeah, I want to play a thief, man. Oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait to play a thief. Holy shit. I'm so excited. And then you get this. 9 strength, 10 dex, 8 con, 9 charisma. You are good at no thiefy thing ever. It's just you have a 13 int. Technically, now this is actually not a legal... Well, it is a legal character, but you do have the option of re-rolling because there's no 14. That, however, is legal character, and you're practically good at nothing. You're slightly above a peasant. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan. Not a huge fan. It's not very exciting. So 5d6 on dex. Well, it's not going to be good. It is 12. So thankfully, we do get a +1 at least on our dex. Then, let's go with 4d6 wisdom. What is perception, do we think? What do we usually roll for that? Detect the hidden. Yeah, I think wisdom. There was a section somewhere in here about hiding and searching and like what that falls under. But I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Looking in the right place automatically reveals a hidden creature. That's specifically creatures, like searching. Usually, this kind of game, it's more about, like, where do you actually tell the DM that you're searching? What are you actually doing? Rather than just revolving everything around a check. But if there was going to be a check, wisdom is also deciphering the sounds on the other side of a door, or determining the direction of a faint noise or smell. Yeah, I think wisdom is fairly valuable for, like, a scout. So, we'll go 4d6 on wisdom. Again, not great, but we did get a 13. +1. Then, what else do we want 4d6 on? Either I'm going con or strength. I think we'll save charisma for Wisteria, our mage, the feminine touch and all that sort of stuff. I wanted it to be Peloran, but I don't envision Carvis as the charming one. I envision him as the smelly one. So let's go with... I mean, strength is useful if we get into combat, but con is also pretty useful. Alright, let's go con. 4d6 con. 14 again. 12. Okay, so he gets a bonus there. Okay, 3d6 strength. 12. Hey, look at this. Bonuses all around. 3d6 int. 17! He's a fucking mastermind. 3d6 charisma. 10. Okay. Alright, the intellect doesn't really do much for him. It helps him with stabilized checks on somebody else. It helps him, it says here, recalling the path through a twisting maze or finding food and water sources in the wilderness. There might be intellect checks once in a while. but certainly not the most valuable stat. Yeah. Okay. Gold, we get 40. Deity, Shun the Vile, we worship for some reason. And we'll be neutral. Our background is healer. Okay. And we're human. Create. Roll your HP. Alright, he'll have 3 thanks to his con mod. And his talent. Draw 4 results from the... Why are you drawing 4 results? Weird. Well, I mean, this is one result. It's +2 to Strength, Dex, or Charisma. Our choice. I think we're going to go with Dex. It's really the flavor du jour. And we're going to get another roll on the table. Go. Alright, so other things that Thief gets. They can use clubs, crossbows, daggers, shortbow, short swords, leather armor, chainmail, or mithril chainmail. Sorry. So chances are you're just using leather armor. They get backstab. If you hit a creature who is unaware of your attack, you deal an extra weapon die of damage. Add additional weapon dice of damage equal to half your level. Round down. And thievery, adept at thieving skills and have the necessary tools of the trade secreted on your person. They take up no gear slots. So you have advantage on climbing, sneaking, hiding, applying disguises, finding and disabling traps, delicate tasks such as picking pockets and opening locks. Anything that a thief could really attempt to be thiefy gets advantage on. It's a pretty powerful ability, but that's what the thief is. So I'm just going to roll 2d6 because I have the book here anyways. 8. It is another +2 to Strength, Dex, or Charisma. Well, I mean, a 16 Dex is pretty nice, and it's probably where we want to be. Very high AC and good at all dexterous activities. So, yeah. Now, stats in Shadowdark only provide a bonus up to 18. Once you hit 18, you get +4, and you can increase stats past that, but the rules say that nothing goes above +4. So even if you somehow got a 28 strength, it's still a +4. Obviously, pretty easy to house rule if you prefer, you know, a little more power scaling and you want to be among gods and stuff like that. But yeah, that keeps it in check. Because the talent rolls, you could just keep getting that same roll and keep putting it into Dex. And it would be very easy. It would be possible at level 1 to have like a 22 Dex. If you got an 18 and then +2 and +2. And a 22 Dex in 5th edition D&D would be +6. Yeah, so +6, which is pretty insane at level 1. So they just curved that, and instead of just saying you can't increase a stat above 18 at level 1, they just cap the whole thing at a +4 mod. Because you get talents every other level, I think, every odd level. Yeah, every odd level. So by the time you're level 10, you'll have 4 more talent rolls. So we're good with that. He's pretty squishy, but he's got a good AC, so we're happy with all that information. Everything is good here. We apparently speak Giant, and we worship Shun the Vile. But we have a background as a healer. Go figure. So we're going to go to gear, and we are going to grab with our 40 gold pieces. We definitely want a bow. Either a crossbow or a short bow. In this game, the differences are... the crossbow, you have to forego your movement to reload it. And it has far range, 1d6 damage. The short bow has far range, 1d4 damage. So if you want something that hits hard, you want the crossbow compared to the short bow. Now, eventually, of course, what you want is a longbow, but the thief can never use a longbow. That is his pain and punishment. So we're gonna go with crossbow. And he is going to need crossbow bolts. So that comes in set of 20 is standard. He's also going to want a melee weapon, most likely the short sword. It's either that or club or daggers. It's a fairly limited choice here. A dagger is obviously a d4, can be thrown. Whereas the short sword is a d6, can't be thrown. The club is a d4. Its only advantage is that it's fucking dirt cheap. But it's also a blunt weapon, so you might want to actually... I mean, honestly, you should buy 2, really. Although... yeah, no, we'll buy a club. Obviously, we want to have plenty of room for gear. Or for loot. So we don't want to carry too much here. But we're going to buy the club and we'll buy a short sword. And then we'll buy leather armor. Because they cannot use shields, unfortunately. Alright, so we have spent now... Crossbow was 8. Short sword was 7, so that's 15. Leather armor is 10, that's 25. And the club was 5 copper. The bolts were 1, so that's 26 we spent. Technically, we did... we had to break up a gold. Okay. And then we probably want the crawling kit, because it's got everything you need. And there's a thief especially will want the crawling kit. So, we'll just buy this all piecemeal again. It's 7 gold. I mean, I love that the crawling kit is here. Mostly for, like, new players. Like, if you've never played a game like this, like an OSR-style game, it's just, like, you look at the crawling kit, and it kind of tells, you know, it indicates to you, like, look, this is what you're probably going to want to buy at the start for going into dangerous locations. And it just is very evocative. It's like, oh, okay, I'm going to need, you know, conjures up all these images of spelunking and, you know, tomb raiding and all that, like iron spikes and grappling hooks and torches, and yeah, I think it's pretty great. Unfortunately, it does take up a fuck ton of slots. What are the backpack rules here? I don't think there are any backpack rules. No, it's just you have a backpack and it takes up. It does not take up a slot. No, okay, good. Yeah, so we have no room for any fun stuff. Although coins don't really take up slots. I don't even know if there are encumbrance rules for coins. So don't sweat it. We're not going to sweat it. So that was another 7, so we have 6 gold pieces left. We have no room for anything, so that's it. And that is Carvis done. So we will use the rogue image. There we go. And now we're going to go with our third and final character, Wisteria, who is a wizard. And we're just doing classic wizard here, because I was a mage in the other game. Human. Alright. Obviously, intelligence is the name of the game here, because that determines how well we cast spells. So that is our 5d6 for sure. And we got a 26. Woo, no, 17. I was really hoping to see an 18 there, but I'll take the 17. Then 4d6 on charisma for sure. We want that. All right, 13. That's not bad. It's not horrible. And then let's do 4d6 on Dex. Dex is so powerful in so many RPGs. 11 does not get us +1. All right, 3d6 strength, 10. 3d6 whiz, 9. Shame. And 3d6 con, 10. All right, very average otherwise. But +3 int for your mage, you'd be happy with that, so it is what it is. Gold, we get 50. Our deity is also all the Nord gods. Alignment neutral. Background, Fey touched. All right. And I think we're good. HP of 4. Yes! More than the thief. Nice. And our talents. +2 intelligence or +1 on spellcasting checks. You're gonna want intelligence until you get 18, because then that applies to many other things. But after you're at 18, then you want to go into spellcasting checks. So we're gonna do that. Then your spells. So yeah, you can see all the tier 1 spells. You get to pick 3 of them at level 1 that you know. And Shadowdark has a very generous casting system where you have to roll against a DC whenever you want to cast a spell, and if you succeed, you cast the spell, and you can cast the spell again at some other time. If you fail, you don't cast the spell, and you cannot attempt it again for the rest of the day. It's pretty luck-oriented, because it means that you could theoretically cast not a single spell the entire day. And so that's why plenty of people house rule it, where if you fail, you still cast the spell, it's just you can't cast it again that day. That's the house rule that I went with when I ran it for my family, because I knew for a frickin' fact that they were not going to be happy if they failed a spell cast, and that was just it for the day. You know, your buddy's dying and you rush over with Cure Light Wounds and you fail the roll and they die, and it's just like, oh god. Yeah, that doesn't seem great. But, I mean, on the flip side, my mom played a priest for like a few sessions, and she like never failed a Cure Light Wounds cast ever. And they were basically perpetually at full health because she never failed. So it is possible to swing that way. Which is very not traditional. But yeah, I think it's too bullshitty at level 1, especially like introducing someone to this spell. Like, that wasn't how it was in the old days. You got one spell, but you knew that spell was going to happen unless you got hit while trying to cast it or something. But I don't know, you know, yeah. I like the house rule, so that's what we go with. So yeah, there's these tier 1s, and then I also have this other supplement called Novice Magic, which adds a shit ton of more spells. Many spells. And my PDF reader froze again, as it does. It's definitely not necessary to look at this supplement. You know, the tier 1 spells for the wizard are a lot of classic options. I like there's not even fucking not even a table of contents, but here's the ones. This is the full list for this supplement. This does include the ones in the core book, like Alarm, Burning Hands, Charm Person, Light, Mage Armor, Magic Missile, Sleep. But it adds a lot of other fun stuff like Dancing Lights, Cause Fear, Icy Touch, Infection, Obscuring Mist, Putrefaction, Shadow Walk, Summon Elemental. So I would actually go with this list, except that it's a lot easier just to have it, the official ones on here. So if I was going to pick spells, and I wanted to pick my 3 spells based on min-maxy options, I guess I'd pick Magic Missile, Sleep, and then probably Charm Person. I mean, that's not the end-all, be-all list of 3 or anything, but I think those are all going to be pretty powerful. Charm Person only works on humanoids of level 2 or less, but it lasts for 1d8 days, which is kind of good and in line with old school gaming. Magic Missile, obviously, is Magic Missile, and the fact that you can potentially spam it. Magic Missile is actually really good because you get advantage on the spellcasting check, so you're really unlikely to lose it. And it's just guaranteed 1d4 damage out to range far, which at level 1 is pretty nice. You know, there's no upcasting here or anything like that. Magic Missile doesn't ever get better or anything, but considering far range, I believe, is like as far as you can see. That means that it's pretty useful out of a dungeon, for sure. I'm pretty sure far is as far as you can see. Somewhere it says that, but yeah, so that's pretty good. And then Sleep is a lulling spell fills a near-sized cube extending from you. Living creatures in the area of effect fall into a deep sleep if they're level 2 or less. And most of the things you're going to encounter at level 1 in a dungeon and stuff like that are going to be level 2 or less. You know, all the little piddly kobolds and, you know, goblins, dire rats and things like that. Most of that's going to be pretty weak. If we look up the stats here for a kobold, level 0. So yeah, putting out all the kobolds with one spell, pretty good. So I guess that's what I would go with if I was going to pick. But I also like the general idea of rolling randomly. So that's, let's see, there's 4, 8, 12 options. So we'll just do D12s. First one is 10, so that's going to be Magic Missile. Good. Great. Then we have Burning Hands. Not my favorite or anything, but it's got its uses. And 8, which is Light. Also not my favorite or anything, but it does save one of the others from holding a torch. Probably the Paladin. Yeah, so we can just cast Light on his shield, and then it's, you know, it's a torch for an hour. So, there you go. Alright, and we speak a lot of languages because we're awesome. We're not level up to 2, so I don't know why you're saying such things to me. And you can't edit XP, and now you can't edit my level. I'm just level 2 forever. Why did you do this? Why did you do this? Why can you not edit every part of a character sheet? That just bothers me. That's the whole point of a character sheet, is I can change whatever the fuck I want. Well, we're level 2, and I can't keep track of XP, apparently. Oh well. Right. So then we need our second talent. So 2d6 on that. Wow, we actually got a 2. Holy shit. Holy shit. What does that mean? Mage. Wizard, I'm sorry. Make one random magic item of a type you choose. What? Do we just start with a magic item? And the type is one that we choose. Okay, so, well, I gotta say, their random magic item generation is not so hot. Oh, no, I mean, it's... Yeah, okay, it's okay. So we can choose armor, potion, scroll, utility, wand, or weapon. And we could pick weapon and give it to our paladin. Utility would be stuff like a ring or a helm or goggles. That would be something like once per day you can teleport nearby, or it turns a stat 18, or you can hold your breath for an hour. So I think utility could be useful. But then again, stuff like a weapon would be like +2 sword, you know, that adds both to attack and damage, and might have some other thing. Like, if you crit, you just behead the enemy, or you have advantage on initiative or something. So the question is, do we want to make our wizard better, potentially? Or do we want to make sure that our paladin is better in combat? Are we just planning around combat here, or should I plan more utility? I guess typically I lean utility, but I feel like that's so potentially hit or miss. Like, we could get a magic helm that makes us... we can't be magically scryed upon or detected. It's like, great. Whereas, if we roll a weapon, the odds are it's going to be at least a +1. And that's pretty big. So I think we just go with a weapon, ironically, for our wizard. But hey, it's a type of... I get to choose. I get to choose whatever I want. Alright, so we're going to choose a weapon. So now we roll 2d6 for its qualities. 5. Okay, so it has 1 benefit and 1 curse. Now we're going to roll a d20 for the type of weapon. It's a bastard sword. Okay, that's pretty good. You can use that one-handed or two-handed. So we have a magic bastard sword. Then 2d6 for its bonus. Alright, yes, +1. So it's a +1 bastard sword. Then a d20 for its feature. It trails incense. Okay. That seems not great, but alright. Then its benefit. D12. When you hit a creature, you learn its true name. Alright, well, that's what I'm saying about, like, hit or miss. It's just kind of like, okay, sure. Oh, okay, there is an actual mechanical benefit to it. You have advantage on attack rolls and spellcasting checks targeting a creature whose true name you utter. So as long as we hit something twice, we get advantage on the second roll. It's not bad, but then there's also a curse, which is also a d12. You must loudly praise a god whenever you see its symbol. Okay, definitely one of those, like, role-playing, how am I going to run this sort of thing. But, yes, I guess. So, if we want to add this sword, I think you'd probably just, like, Well, you might just add a bastard sword and then start modifying it, and we'd come up with a cool name for it. Takes up 2 slots. Oof, we're gonna have to ditch something here. Alright, what do we want to call this thing? So we learn true names, it trails incense, and we must all loudly praise a god whenever we see its symbol. Well, it's a magic item. I'm terrible at coming up with cool names. Let me go to ChatGPT. Oh, we also have to roll 2d6 for its personality? Because it might have a personality? I generally don't like that concept, because usually people expect the DM to just do it. Like, the DM to act as the personality, and it's like, I don't need another constant NPC that I have to remember to chime in once in a while. So I don't like sapient weapons. Let's ask ChatGPT. I need a name for a magical bastard sword that trails incense. Okay, it's quite the mixture of traits here. I wonder what ChatGPT will come up with. Will I be satisfied? I usually am. You usually got some good thing, but this is a pickle. Here's the name for your magical bastard sword: the Chorus of Revelation. It is kind of cool. All right, we'll go with that. Chorus of Revelation. Alright, it's got +1 attack and damage. Alright, we're gonna ditch one of the javelins then, I guess. What does that mean, toggle stashed? Oh, that's like back home. That's back at our home base. I mean, in this scenario, we don't really have a home base. But there you go. Now, it doesn't seem to be accounting... Wait a minute. That can't be correct. Why are you adding another +1 for the mace and javelin on melee? Oh. Because that's what that interpreted that as... That's not what that is, though. Weapon attack roll bonus? It only affects this thing. Not all my weapons. Weapon damage, weapon damage bonus. Okay, that should be good now. Yes, that is correct. So, strength does not automatically apply to damage in this game, like many other games. So, that is really the only way you're getting a damage bonus, unless you roll a talent, which for our Valkyrie... Yes, 7 and 9. Well, you have the greatest odds, honestly, of getting +1 to attack and damage with a weapon of your choice. Well, we know our weapon of choice now. Thanks to Wisteria giving us the chorus of revelation. Okay. That's it then. We're done. We're done? Oh, gear. God. We're almost done. So she can use a dagger or a staff, so we'll just give her a staff, as usual. And armor, she can't wear any, so there's nothing to do about that. So she'll, I guess, take crawling gear, just because it's... What else is... I mean, she doesn't need a lot of this stuff. We don't need 3 grappling hooks and 30 iron spikes and things like that, so really, I guess it's not that important. We're just going to take some rations, and she'll take the backpack, and she'll take flint and steel, I guess, but she doesn't really need torches because she has a light spell, so she doesn't care that much. Honestly, that's kind of about it. The only other thing that I might be interested in buying is like a potion of healing, but that's not listed in the adventuring gear. There is no recommended value for a potion of healing, and this is definitely the problem that came up when I was DMing it. The closest thing that you're gonna get is in the treasure list, because I believe there is a potion of healing mentioned in one of the treasure lists. Yeah, 150 gold pieces is what it's valued at in the treasure list, which is, I don't know, seems like an outrageous sum, to be honest, for a single potion of healing. But, you know, it's what they decided on. And it heals like 1d4. I mean, I don't know. There's probably someone else has come up with a better potion of healing. Let me see if anyone else has come up with this. It's like a super common thing. A standard healing potion on page 310. Oh, it's in the magic item list. Oh, okay, never mind. So potion of healing. From level 0 to 3, if you drink it, it heals 1d6. From 4 to 6, it heals 2d8. So, 150 gold pieces that heal 1d6. It's a little rough. It's a little rough. Kelsey says that they didn't want to really encourage a magic item economy. Potions should be rare. It clashes with the design intention of the system. So yes, Shadowdark is designed where you cannot, with the intention of you're not able to buy magic items. There is no market for that of any kind, and these things are found or made by high-level wizards and stuff like that. Which is not, I mean, it's not like a radical concept or anything. And obviously, but somebody can make potions of healing, correct? It is possible for you to make potions of healing. I mean, these are all, potions are made. They were made at some point, and they could be made again, right? I don't know if there are crafting rules here, but obviously someone at some point in time made potions of healing, and they're still around. So it's reasonable that someone could make it again. unless the core ingredients are just lost to time. Like they no longer exist in this setting. But I don't know, I feel if you have a setting where it's possible to make healing potions, someone is going to fucking, you know, someone's going to monetize that. Like, yeah, I understand, like, there obviously should be rare, one-of-a-kind magic items, you know? Like legendary swords and stuff like that. Yeah, that's a pretty big deal. But something as core of an idea as a potion of healing in a brutal, like, middle-aged fantasy setting where people are getting injured and dying all the time, like, a potion of healing would be insane. Even in our world, which is not, even in the United States of America, which is not really pockmarked by war and suffering constantly, and just grievous injuries. I mean, we have a lot of that, but still, even us, we would fucking love a potion of healing, wouldn't we? So I feel like you either have to have it where it's just not possible to be created by anyone in the setting, or it's going to be at every corner drugstore. I mean, yeah, the actual resources for it could be really tricky. You could kind of go for a middle ground there, but still, in a big city, they'd be for sale. Whatever price you want to throw on them, fine, but they should be for sale, I think. So I don't know, I guess maybe 150 gold pieces is fair. Maybe that's fair. That's it for Wisteria, I think. Which means that we have our 3 characters. And that only took us an hour and 42 minutes. Obviously, you can make characters much faster than that. Had we just gone to Shadowdark lanes and just whipped up 3 characters, you know, I wouldn't have been able to do the Valkyrie, but still, the Thief and the Mage, we could have had that whipped up in like 10 seconds and just imported it into Foundry and be done. So I just take forever to do stuff, and you probably know that by now. So I guess we can technically start, because that's everything you need to get started. There's not much else to do. So we can technically start Sinister Stone of Sakkara. And again, if you skipped over the whole Axe videos, this is going to be a little jarring to you. Just like how much information is contained in this module. But the general gist of it is that we are answering a call that a legate put out. He's at this Keep Turos Tem here on a tour, as it's known, and he put out a call for anyone to assist in some Beastmen raids. Beastmen have been raiding his domain, his farmlands here that he's in control of. This is a location kind of on the edge of civilization here. It's on the borderlands. So we have a map here, skewed map that we can't look at properly, but Turos Tem is right here in the middle. And so this river is the edge of civilized territory. So then over here on the other side of the river, this is kind of like the what did they call it? Oh, they called it, this is lawful territory, and then this is neutral territory, and then this is chaotic territory down here by the mountains. So they're right on the edge of civilization, of lawful territory. And he's got his hands very full, kind of dealing with everything going on here and protecting the keep itself and blah, blah, blah. He doesn't have that many men because there's a war going on another part of the continent that most of his men have been dispatched to. because, you know, that's his job, is to answer that call. But beastmen have been raiding from this forest out into the farmland here, and so he's put out a call to any adventurers that would be interested in heading into the forest, finding wherever they're coming from, and putting an end to the threat. It's a lofty goal. But he's just kind of casting his net out there to see if anyone will take the bait and maybe succeed. And he's offering a payment of 2,000 gold pieces. Now, that is 2,000 gold pieces in axe money. And honestly, I think that's fairly consistent. Again, I usually look at longsword costs. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I believe a longsword in that game costs 10 gold. Now I don't remember. Fuck. Alright, I'm actually going to check because I'm this anal. But it is important going forward. If we're looking at an axe module, so it'd be kind of nice to know the conversion here. So here's the axe rules. A standard sword costs 10 gold. All right, and in our case, it costs 9 gold. So very close, which isn't super surprising. You know, they try to do broad compatibility within the OSR. So I think that's fairly on point. We could look at some other values, but it's, you know, it's not ever really going to be a one-to-one sort of thing. A longbow in axe costs 7. A longbow here costs 8. So there's that. Looking at armor and stuff, leather armor here costs 20. For us, it costs 10. You know, there's going to be inconsistencies like that. Chainmail for them costs 40. For Shadowdark costs 60. You know, it's reasonable. It's a gold standard, and the values are somewhat consistent. So you can see how much 2,000 gold pieces is in axe. I mean, obviously, it would get you a decent amount of shit. If we go by ration costs, that's going to be a lot cheaper. Not necessarily, actually. Rations here, you get 3 days worth for 5 silver. In axe, you get... they do it just by week, I guess. So 1 week would be 1 gold. So honestly, pretty close. And that's low end on iron rations. And that... You know, Shadowdark does not go into how long rations last. They're not that anal. So axe differentiates between iron rations and standard rations. I think we just assume Shadowdark has iron. So honestly, the price is pretty comparable. And I think that means that I could use axe numbers pretty much across the board, which is fucking fantastic. Because axe has a lot of numbers. And that makes it very nice. So now I can just say how much a dozen eggs cost, or a pint of vinegar, or a night at a slum inn, how much it might cost to kennel your dogs, things like that. You get into structure costs. So with 2,000 gold, if we pool it together, we could build a concrete building 30 feet long, 30 feet wide, and 20 foot high. It's pretty good. We could build some wood cottages for ourselves. I mean, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money in axe. It's a lot of money in Shadowdark. For like the average person, it's a big sum. Specifically in axe, 2,000 is enough to level you up from 1 to 2. So that leads into talking about XP in Shadowdark. It's not milestone, and you by default get no XP for monsters. No XP for avoiding monsters, overcoming monsters, killing monsters, none of that. all of your XP comes from treasure, but not quite in the same way. It's not going to be 1 gold is 1 XP. It's much more abstracted than that. And honestly, I think in some ways it's easier, and some ways it's not as easy. Because when you have exact treasure values for everything, it's pretty clear. It's like, okay, you found 400 gold worth of treasure, you get 400 XP. Done. I mean, there's not really any arguments there or anything like that. Because it's not based on selling it. It's literally just based on getting it and bringing it back to civilization. And there you get your XP. Here, it's based on, like, the quality and, like, general quantity of XP, of treasure that you find. And for some reason, I just cannot find the XP section in this fucking book. I don't get it. Oh, page 117. It says XP rewards are based on the quality of the treasure and boons you gain during a session. And that's all players are aware of it at the start. But for DMs, treasure has 4 categories. And it doesn't need to reflect monetary value, because you can also get rewarded for getting boons or secrets you can acquire through gameplay, meaningful tokens or trophies, and you can even get XP for clever thinking. So the DM can just award you XP. But most of it's probably going to come from gold and gems and stuff. So anytime there is a treasure, it has to fall into one of these 4 categories. So there's poor treasure. This is worth 0 XP. That it doesn't mean that it's useless, because a bag of silver pieces does have value to you. It's just worth no XP. Or like a used dagger or knucklebone dice or something like that. It's like something that's, you know, has some sort of value, some sort of tangible value, but no XP, because it's not very special. Then there's the normal number. That's worth 1 XP. This is a bag of gold, a gem, fine armor, a magic scroll. This is going to be the most common, like, oh shit, we found treasure kind of thing. That's going to be 1 XP. It's not going to be the end of your big dungeon, like the big hall at the end after the boss or something, you know, something like that. Most treasure, though, that is actually like, yes, we found treasure now. That's going to be 1 XP. And then 3 XP, fabulous treasure, is like a magic sword or a giant diamond or mithril chainmail. This is going to be like, okay, it's well guarded. This is the hard to get treasure, the really hard to find treasure, something like that. The big find. You know, probably one of those in a low level dungeon or something. And then the big stuff, legendary, 10 XP, which is enough to go from level 1 to 2 on it by itself. That's like the legendary magical items, or a horde from a dragon, or a wish from a genie. That's going to be very rare. So I think in some ways it's easier, because just when in doubt, it's 1 XP and call it a day. But it's also, I don't know, I probably in general prefer the idea of just calculating the treasure value, and that's how much XP you get. But I could see when modernizing it and not being beholden to like how it was in the old days, streamlining in this way is not a bad idea for like new DMs, because then you don't really have to think about the specific value of every piece of treasure you give to your players or they find or whatever. And I would probably make my players well aware of this scale of like the XP that they could be getting, because I think there could be, you know, that puts it out there in the table of like, okay, I think this is a 0 XP, kind of treasure. This is kind of a poor treasure. And maybe there's an argument that they could all make. They're like, oh no, I think this really has more value or something like that. Not to invite constant arguments about, hey, this should be a 3 XP treasure. What are you doing? I think the scale is relatively clear. And it does also advise that per treasure find, each group should gain about 10 gold pieces times their average party level in value. So from level 0 to 3, 20 gold pieces in value. So per treasure find, they should gain about 200 gold. I don't know, it's a very vague thing to say. I'm not quite sure what to ever make of that. Per treasure find. I mean, poor treasure is a treasure find. And they should gain about 200 gold from that. But then, I mean, what does this mean? I don't get what it means. I don't like it. I'm gonna ignore it. That's not the only way to gain XP, because there's also carousing. And carousing is when you actually spend money to celebrate. And you roll on a carousing table. And you get a bonus depending on how much you spend. And then depending on the outcome of a dice roll with that bonus, you know, it's some sort of aftermath of your epic party. So, you know, there's usually some sort of, like, you hazily remember donating 10% of your total wealth to a glib priest, or you performed a humiliating prank on a despised and corrupt merchant. You know, it offers, like, side quests or, like, sort of story generation, you know, random encounter kind of stuff, because you're throwing, like, some epic party, potentially. And it also might, you know, have some additional cost. Like, if you roll low, you're locked in the stocks for 1d4 days and find 20% of your total wealth for setting a building on fire. And there are loads and loads and loads of carousing tables available online. More so than just the ones here. And then you gain extra XP. So, you know, let's say, you know, you do reasonably well. You come back. Say we get that 2,000 gold pieces, right? Say we don't even get any other treasure. We just get the 2,000 gold pieces. And we want to carouse with like 600 of it together. We'd roll a d8 with a +3. And assuming we maxed out that, we'd roll an 11. We'd get 5 XP from that and an ally in the city watch. Now, where it gets tricky is like, okay, so we get 2,000 gold for completing the quest. What is the XP value of that? Is that worth 10 treasure finds? Should that be worth 10 XP on its own? It's not really a dragon horde, is it? But 3 XP seems really light. So rather than incentivizing like one big treasure find, it incentivizes lots of little treasure finds, which is kind of weird. I don't know. I'm kind of curious now to look into how other people are running XP and all that kind of stuff. I think I've definitely read of people that are just doing... They literally just copy, like, the fighter XP progression. So they literally just copy this right here. And they just run gold as XP. Straight up. So, 2,000 gold, 2,000 XP, and that gets you from 1 to 2. And so every character just uses the fighter progression table there. Honestly, it's not the worst idea, and it's like perfectly acceptable. I mean, there's nothing stopping you from running. Considering that you can run Shadowdark, you can use Shadowdark to run any old school module. You either can just run it as gold as XP, or you have to determine what each treasure find is on the XP chart, which isn't that big of a deal. But yeah, I wouldn't really have a problem just running gold as XP straight up. Going a step further and doing XP for monsters and like defeating monsters gives XP. That would be a little trickier to bolt on. But if you're running it with these numbers anyways, then you could also just run... you just play Axe. But you could run the... you could use this, which has a base XP value based on the monster hit die, with a bonus for any special abilities. Now, Shadowdark doesn't use hit dice for enemies, or rather, it doesn't display that for their enemies. I'm pretty sure someone has a formula. Oh no, it kind of does. Yeah, I guess it does. It's just a level. Yeah, okay. No, yeah, it's just a level. So a level 2 cultist is a hit die 2 monster. So they'd be worth 20 XP each for defeating them. Yeah, okay. Now, it does have... I mean, we're never getting started. We're never doing anything in this game. We're just reading. Everything's a let's read now. They do have an optional mode of play here. Hunter mode. Defeated monsters grant XP equal to half their level round down. Which is far, far less. But, again, that's on their scale. So, that's actually a lot more. That means that for every level 2 monster you kill, you get 1 XP. And to get from level 1 to 2, you need 10 XP. So if you killed 10 level 2 monsters, you just level up from that with Hunter mode. Now, they do say defeated here, which is the same sort of language that they use here in Axe, because that could be outsmarted, captured, or killed. But I don't think Shadowdark is quite as clear with it. They just say defeated, which implies to a new player, meaning to kill them. But if you... like, when we did Axe, I used my spell to scare off a whole pack of wild hounds, and I counted that as defeating them, even though I only killed 3 of the 12, and I got full XP for the whole pack. Now, maybe I shouldn't have gotten full XP for the pack, but that's usually how I interpret defeating, is I outsmarted them. I won the encounter. And whether you win the encounter by scaring them all off so that they never are a problem for you again, or defeating them in some way that they're never a problem for you again, or you just butcher them, it's still winning the encounter. I don't think... you don't give it really for avoidance, usually. But I think you can give it for avoidance. Like, if there's a group of enemies blocking your way into a dungeon or into another room or something like that, and you distract them and sneak past, or you cause a distraction and they run off to go investigate and you get by them, I mean, that's worth XP. And really, you want to give XP for that if you're going to be doing this kind of system, because you want to encourage creative solutions to problems that aren't just, well, we got to kill them. If we kill them, we get XP. It's like, no. You get XP if you outsmart them and defeat the encounter in some other way, and it's a lot safer to do it that way. And if all comes worse to worse, you just kill them anyways. But, yeah, ideally you want to avoid combat and defeat encounters with your brains. And so a good way to incentivize that is with XP. I think there's like an adage in RPGs of like rewarding the behavior that you want to incentivize. Don't remember the exact. Yeah, it's like reward the things you want to see in the game. So like if you want combat to be more creative and involve like terrain and more stuff like that. Like you want to put a lot of that kind of interesting stuff in your combats and make sure that it is rewarding for players to interact with it. If you want your players to do more role playing or something like that, or use their words instead of swords, like you want to make that a rewarding activity for them to encourage that kind of thing. So yeah, the more I think about it, like just doing gold as XP and monster defeated XP is pretty good. The only issue is that I'd have to always have this table on hand for the monster XP, because I wouldn't know exactly the numbers. I mean, you could just do hunter mode and go with their system, which means that a level 1 and a level 0 monsters aren't worth anything. And I get why they did that. They only had 10 XP to work with, like from level 1 to 2. XP's on a much different scale here. But that's another benefit to doing the fighter 2000 XP scale. So yeah, maybe that's how I'd run it in the future. But again, I love systems that are so hackable, you know? I love so easy to modify and just change whatever I feel like. So yeah, I guess I would print out this sheet, print out that table, and print out the fighter XP table, and just yep, this is how we're operating. Again, it means that you need to always know the precise value of treasure that are in all your locations, but honestly, like, don't you have that? Don't you do that anyways? You kind of need to know how much treasure is worth at some point. Players are interested. They're going to sell it or something, so they kind of want to know. You're either going to come up with it when you put it in the dungeon, or you're going to spitball later when they try to sell it. So, yeah, you're going to have to come up with it regardless. All right, anyways. Oh, yeah, we were looking at... Right, we were looking at this, and then we're talking about 2,000 gold pieces and saying how much it was. Well, now you know how much it is. It allows us to buy quite a bit of shit and get from level 1 to 2 without any other XP. So it's quite a bit. And yeah, so we're just adventurers answering that call and hoping to solve this somehow and get rich. And that's the whole idea of this entire module. And so I guess we'll be starting that next time. Honestly, I continually underestimate how much I can yap. Because I thought, like, oh, fucking Shadowdark? Like, we're going to have characters made in, like, 10 minutes, and we're going to start the adventure right away, and we'll probably get to, you know, the temple within, like, 2 hours. Nope! Didn't even start. Great. I don't know. At this point, you're either just here and you're good with it, or you stopped listening a long time ago. So, it is what it is. But we'll get to it next time, and I'm pretty certain we will get to the dungeon in the next video. I'm pretty confident. But like I said, we're going to try to go through all the steps early on that I did in Axe and just see how much easier and simpler and fluid it is in Shadowdark. Including hiring a henchman, which should be, again, similarly pretty easy, because you can just literally go here at level 0, roll random, roll ancestry, roll this, create, roll a random name, Jerwin. Boom, there's your level 0 scrub. We had a level 1 fighter, but again, like, it's that easy to just make super quickly. You can just make here level 1, fighter, and roll random stats and get shit and hate it and roll all this other stuff. Ishana, choose a weapon type, spear, and then they roll shit and they get that stuff, and there's your level 1 fighter with 1 health and 10 strength, and this is a pretty shitty character. But you get the idea. Pretty simple. All right, anyways. That's it for now. My name is Mang. This has been Solo Roll Manging with Shadowdark. See you fine folks in the next part.